And we don't have to go very far in this program to reprogramming our thinking. Because up to now, our thinking is what got us into this hole and this mess, our addictions, our being upset with life, and all these things that can make us miserable, So we don't want to be miserable. That's why we're here, to be happy. That's why we eat excessive amounts of food, to be happy. That's why we take drugs or alcohol. That's why we try to be very, very, very successful, make a lot of money, and have people praise us, to be happy. But possibly our thinking was off. We're a product of what we were brought up in society. Our parents told us, they told us in school, and all the things that went to make this whole thing up of what we call ourselves. It's called the ego. So the very first step, if you read the very first step, it tells me we admitted we were powerless over, you could put alcohol, food, and that our lives became unmanageable. And I went to a meeting years ago, and one guy says, listen, he says, we have alcohol in the place there, we could put anything in there. And I started to realize, and by working these steps, I'm powerless. So going back to that type of behavioral therapy, I had to realize that my whole thinking was I had control and power over everything. That's the truth I thought. And I realized as working these steps, the real truth is in here, and that when I get centered, and I like to call it, like in sports, they call being in the zone. And when you really, and our 9-step promises say, we'll intuitively know. So, and a lot of you here for the food addiction, but in relation to our food addiction, alcohol, whatever addiction it is, intuitively we'll know the answer. What is our answer now? Well, it's related to what the food, the corporations told us. And you hear these commercials on TV, how to start your day, and it talks about being, breakfast, and the songs we hear, and whatever it is. So we're conditioned to think, and not only that, food is a drug, and in the food they put certain other chemicals in there that stimulate our hypothalamus and our dopamine in our brain, all these crazy thinking. So I had to realize at some point that I needed to have that change of thinking, because the way I did it till now didn't work. And the way I know that is, and we all know it, the phrase hitting bottom. I was so miserable, so upset, so addicted, and my life had become so narrow and so finite. And my addiction could be alcohol, food, drugs, whatever it was. Or you could be addicted to trying to be successful. Your whole life is about trying to gain more over other people and situations and more material things. If you liked the video so far, press the like and subscribe button. I had as a subtopic, it's called To Live Above Our Problems. And the reason I said it is because the change in thinking was that all of these things, and they call it things of the flesh, these everyday 3-dimensional things. And if any of you really have read the big book, it talks about on page 8 and on page 25, it talks about going into the 4th dimension. And the whole crazy thing with that, when I mention a meeting, people say, oh, that's not possible. What do you mean a 4th dimension? How crazy can you be? But I had to make them realize our thinking, the way it was insane. To make it all about food, we should eat to live, not live to eat. The same with making a synthetic chemical outside of us to try to make us happy, alcohol. The problem was I never got enough of it. It could be success, promotions, or money. It's momentary pleasure. I have to agree with that. I have to say to somebody, look, if you eat a big plate of food, or you drink a drink, or whatever it is, you're going to be happy. But it's trying to achieve something from the outside, and the problem is when it's not there, then we're miserable. So long as we have that food in front of us, it's great. But the moment that is taken away from us, and the rest of the day we're miserable. So we need that fix again. And then it becomes all about that. I started to realize I'd be driving in my car, it'd be a beautiful day, and I'd have food or something in one hand, and that's all I could concentrate on. I'd miss out on all of life. So to reprogram our thoughts means to realize to have what's called on a higher plane, to rise above that. In the big book, it talks that in many places. And especially on page 25 in the big book, it talks about the ideas and emotions. And the name of the chapter is There is a Solution. So when it talks about these ideas and emotions, how to be changed, realize with our relationship to food, what is our ideas and emotions? We make it everything. We make it our best friend. We make it everything about our lives. If I only have all this food, that will be the answer to my problem. And on the other side, it just gives us so much devastating and pain because we're looking in the wrong direction. Because we have a problem. It's like having a car with a problem, or you have to fix it, but you don't know where the problem is. And to me, I never knew where the problem was. I thought if everything changed on the outside, if I had more of the outside brought into me if I had more material things, things that are flesh, food, alcohol, drugs, whatever it is, more people in my lives, more people praising me, more, whatever it is, promotion at work. And if people would only change, if things would be different, then I'd be happy. And I started to realize in my spiritual awakening was, because a lot of times step 12 talks about a spiritual awakening. So people say, well, what is a spiritual awakening? Well, as soon as I realized where the answer was, that's when I was awoken to spirituality. And I realized that the answer was in here and not in all these other things. And the joy and happiness, I could be sitting on my couch praying and meditating, step 11, and be ecstatic and very happy and joyful and blissful, whereas I had pleasure, momentary pleasure from the things of the outside. And again, it didn't work. I never got enough of it.
If you liked the video so far, press the like and subscribe button.
Come to our free Zoom meeting. See info in description. Now back to our video. So we have what's called the Solutionist Program, and it's related to, as a topic was, reprogramming our thoughts. And that's what we have chapters in the book called We Agnostics, and that's why the steps talks about finding a higher consciousness, a higher power in our lives. Our old thinking was, well, we live in a secular scientific age, so we think that we can control, and we were talking before about, the beauty of these Zoom meetings and technology and how great that is, but it's good to be able to go on a meeting and Zoom and enjoy it, but the real joy isn't going to be found there. You can't go to enough meetings, you can't find enough people, can't get enough money in life. Billionaires kill themselves, and it doesn't bring happiness really. Matter of fact, on the other side is much more pain. If somebody gets very wealthy and they make it all about money and they miss the whole purpose of life, then they're never going to get enough. They can be miserable. I mean, you could be wealthy, but if you have an understanding that life isn't all about that, that's great too. Make life a little bit more comfortable. So we have an answer. We have a solution to these problems. Again, for people coming on, the topic was reprogramming our thoughts. And if you want to think of it again in a secular way of thinking, because this is really a spiritual program. I went years ago to this therapist, and he said, I told him I was in AA, and he said that's the steps of the best form of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is realizing the truth. He talks in a program, and the truth will set you free. So the real truth in life, again, is that and we can reprogram our thinking. And in relationship to the food, here's the whole key here with the food. We thought it's all about diets. Diets was false, because diets is saying this. When you go on a diet and try to control it, first of all, it's controlling it. We're really saying to ourselves, look, this food is so great, I got to resist it. Then we give it strength. But the reprogramming of thinking comes in when you say, boy, do I want all of that synthetic man-made garbage and junk with all those calories and a salt, oil, and sugar and a bloated feeling in my stomach? And then when we get sent in prayer meditation, I started to realize my body's God's temple. My thinking changed. We wanted wholesome, natural stuff. Wholesome foods, not, and most 90% of the food in our society today is filled with garbage and all these ingredients that are all the calories and no nutrients. They're processed foods, so the problem is processed foods. I'm on a whole food plant-based diet, but I always say no matter what diet you're on, a plan of eating, I should say that, how you go about it, it's the processed food that's the problem. And all the restaurants, all the supermarkets are filled with it. Even though they protest and say in the market, they say, oh, we're healthy here, healthy foods. But if you look really closely, read the ingredients, a lot of it's filled with that junk. So to me, it's that wholesome, natural food. I always like to say, what kind of food do you eat? And I say it's one ingredient. So if I eat something, it's one ingredient. I don't need all that processed junk put in. And after a while, again, going back to reprogram our thinking, I want that healthy food. When I sit down, it's like healthy salad, or it's like it could be grains or fruit, natural stuff. And I always talk about, and I have here the water. Here's a perfect example of what happened to me in my reawakening towards food. These drinks, right, all kinds of lattes, malteds, whatever they are, could be 1,000 calories, 600 calories. And it's filled, after a while, it's all like goopy stuff. And I start to realize this is God's gift. And when I taste water, it is so delicious to take it and drink it. And when you really get into it, and even a little chill on it, right? And your taste buds rejuvenate, and they start to appreciate healthy, wholesome things. And the same with the fruit is really amazing. I mean, people talk about, a lot of times say, I'm addicted to sugar. But if you take like a piece of fruit, it has what's called natural sugar. It's not processed, and it has the fiber, and it's wholesome and healthy. And this is what rejuvenates you and really gives you that sugar. But if I was to eat, man-made pastry with all that synthetic stuff, processed pastry, it would ruin my taste buds. It goes in there, and they put stuff in there, also chemicals that go into your brain, and synthetic sweeteners that are 1,000 times more intense than regular wholesome sugar. But once you get off of that junk, and if you start eating fruit or anything, it's interesting. Vegetables also. People say, oh, they, eat your veggies. But I'm telling you, certain vegetables like broccoli, carrots, they're so delicious once you clear your taste bud of all this junk after a while. And again, the reprogram our thinking. My thoughts are reprogrammed. So I don't need that other stuff. But again, the programs I went through was the craziness on the commercials and the brainwashing and society. And I always talk about not only the food, but it could be with other things in life. I was brainwashed as a kid. You went to school and they told you saw the movie stars, and the teachers said you had to get good grades, or you had to be good in sports, or your parents told you how to do this or do that. Never had a chance. In all the years I went to school, I never heard the word spirituality. Never once. And it's amazing. And there's billions of people through the ages in today's world who believe in spiritual things. And they have what's called in our program, and I didn't get to step 3 yet, reborn in thinking all of a sudden. This is spiritual awakening. You can have it towards the food. It's pretty amazing. Sometimes people have it in an instant. All of a sudden they realize step 1, we're powerless. Step 2, we had to be restored to sanity. They realize how insane the thinking was. First, we had to know where the problem was. And step 3, give our will and our life over to care of God, which is really our innate personality. We're spiritual beings. Just we are. And the way we know that is look at little children. Before they develop the ego, they're happy. They go out and play and do things in life. They even know what food to eat. You ever notice like animals in the wilderness, they're not all bloated and big and heavy, right? Or obese. They know, but we're the same way. People who in our society who have normalcy towards food, they're relaxed, centered, and they let their brain and the receptors in their stomach. But when we're so intense about it, we get into diets and trying to control it with anything in life, we can't think intuitively. We're not in, like I like to call, if you play sports and you try to figure out how to hit a golf ball or hit a baseball and you try to analyze it, you can't. You're stifled by the intellect. But intuitively, if somebody relaxes and they just feel what they're doing, it could be in a sport or whatever it is, or in your relationship with people, or in your business or whatever you're doing, then you'll intuitively know. And there's no greater computer than intuition and letting your mind. Look, the mind and the body were made in perfection in God's image. Just look at how the body works or how a cut heals. It knows just what to do. The breathing is done autonomically, right? Meaning automatically. Breathing and everything about it, our heart beating. But can you imagine if God gave us the ability to control our heart beating or breathing? We'd screw it up just like we do with our ability. We have the ability to put as much food in our mouth as we want. If it was done automatically, we wouldn't have a problem. But really, we were given that gift of automatic when we're centered. And we can then comprehend the mind will take over and do it correctly. But when through self-will and trying to, we can't do it.